I am Jesus Christ. That's the name they're going with? Well, let's see how accurate it. Oh god. They included the foot washing scene too. Why couldn't this have just been a cut scene? Do I really have to stare at these guys from this angle? As a dad, sometimes the only time you get is nap time. So I want to make sure that I'm getting the most value for my time and my money. So let's see if I am Jesus Christ is dad approved. So I received this game as a gift from one of my friends. I didn't spend anything other than my time with this game. How was that time spent? Well, let's start from the beginning. At the beginning of the game, you're introduced to the story of Jesus through what looks like something that they pulled out of the church's basement on a VHS tape. If you pay attention to the subtitles, you'll notice that the spoken words don't really match up all that well to the subtitles.
The Lord appeared to them and said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger."
It's like this throughout the entire game, especially in the cutscenes. More often than not, it was so jarring that I just wanted to skip the cutscenes. With a game so focused on storytelling, you'd think they'd put a little bit more effort into the voice and text of their story. Other important parts of any story are who and how your story is told, and this is told from a first-person perspective from Jesus Christ. Now, one of my main issues here is that out of all the voice acting, Jesus Christ isn't voice acted up until the end of the game.
Father,
Where is your throne
into
then?
your hands I commit my spirit.
Jesus says some of the very last lines of the story, which is very weird. If you can have him voiced at the end of the story, why not throughout the whole story? The lack of voice acting for Jesus made me lose interest in the story early on, so I ended up skipping a whole bunch of text and interactions because they just weren't that great. You're silent, and then you're talking to like an AI voiceover of someone.
That is truly something, my son. May the Lord be with you. I don't know where John is, but go, ask Mary. She may know more.
That's just really not that interesting. It gets annoying when that's how most of the story is told. Now, one part of the story that struck me as really odd at the beginning of the game was when Jesus was suffering for 40 days and 40 nights, he was tempted by Satan. And Satan is depicted as this ugly human. In the Bible, nowhere is Satan portrayed as that. He's just kind of portrayed as like this evil sort of spiritual force. And the weirdest part is that God is depicted in this game as like this sphere of talking clouds.
This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him.
However, I do have some understanding as to why they did this. Obviously, it's a dramatization to get people, interested in the story. If you just had like a disembodied voice talking to you with like the little text at the bottom saying Satan is talking to you and have like this funky, deep voice, like, those devil voice changers, people might not like that at all. It's still it's weird because that's how Satan is portrayed through the whole game. And then you throw the cliche snakes and everything in there, and it's like a story told for kids. It reminds me of something that I would watch during Sunday school. Speaking of some of the more childish aspects of this game, after your 40 days and 40 nights of suffering, you do battle with Satan, if you can call it a battle. You do this stupid minigame. This isn't the only time you're going to do this minigame. There are a couple of other minigames throughout the game that are pretty repetitive and boring. This game has quite the assortment of minigames in it. Gamifying Jesus' miracles is pretty odd. But then again, I've said this whole game so far is odd. You've got the weird snake mini game. You've got this healing mini game where you just run your mouse over these people's boils.
Lord, I am rotting while still alive. And even my closest kin have cast me out of my home as one who is cursed.
You've got the exorcism mini game. It seems like some sort of meme game, just shooting these beams of light at these demons and then dragging them into a portal. It's one of the most jankiest mini games out of all of them, because some of the time it doesn't seem like it just responds, and it's not my mouse. Now, I will give them credit. There is some side quests where Jesus gives sermons, and those are skippable cutscenes. I personally don't think they needed to add these mini games at all. Another nitpick is when you're going to do these little side quests or mini games, you have to pull up a little wheel to select which miracle you're going to perform. But the thing is, you can only perform one miracle, so I don't know why I have to pull up a wheel for that and it can't just automatically do it. Now, while we're on the topic of things that don't make sense, there are sections in this game where you are being escorted by Roman guards, and you are supposed to avoid bumping into them. Now, for the most part, you can't even see them. You can barely see them if you look to the left or right. I also didn't even have to move my keys at all to avoid them. There were a couple times in the last section where I did end up like bumping into them, but they were never a threat. These sections are very long and drawn out, and the only time I can see it being appropriate is at the end of the game, where Jesus made his long walk to his eventual death, which I'm glad they did include. They did a very good job there in the last walking section. Another aspect of the game that they did well was the environment. The environment actually looks pleasing to look at. The characters, not so much. Another thing I want to give them credit for is the lack of loading screens. They did a pretty good job optimizing the game so that fast travel happens almost instantly. Throughout the story, you will encounter sections where you can skip the long walking sections. There will be a little prompt and you hold the C button to do that. It seems very odd where they pick and choose where these sections are. Now, there are other games that do this, like Red Dead Redemption, and I believe The Witcher 3 does it, but having it in this game interrupts the pacing of it. When you're trying to tell an engaging story, like the one in this game, you're going to want to make those walking and drawn out parts a little bit more interesting. They could have made those sections into cutscenes and have it be something like Jesus walked to this location or that location, something like that. If there's another thing about this game that I wouldn't change, it's the puzzles. The puzzles that Jesus has to complete in order to receive his miracle powers. While obviously this isn't how Jesus got his miracle healing powers, I find it a neat addition to the game. It focuses on some of the most important topics like what God created in order and the 10 Commandments in order for the most part. Once you get these miracles though, it's underwhelming. Like I said earlier, using these miracles is just playing some dumb minigame. Now, performing some of these miracles is important to key story events, and they do have cutscenes for those, which is nice. I just wish they would have done it for the rest of them and really chose which ones they wanted to show instead of just having like these random people complaining about boils on their body. Using miracles uses up faith points, prayer points, whatever you want to call them. I don't really think they matter all that much. I didn't really think about them. Much like the follower count that's next to it in the upper right corner. Both of those just seem pretty useless, to be honest. This game just has so much unnecessary fluff to it. Now, I will acknowledge that the developers have addressed the AI voiceover situation, and they said community members have reached out to them to offer their voice acting skills, which I think is great, but I don't know if that's going to save this game. They also mentioned adding some new story content, which I don't think that's really going to save the story either. That might be something that's more for new players, but I don't see returning players wanting to do this again. I know I definitely don't. So, with all that being said, is it dad approved? Do I think it was worth it? If I were to give this game a score, it'd be a 4 out of 10. You could easily fit this in a couple of nap times, but I don't think it's worth spending your time with. And for, what, $15, I don't think it's worth that either. Maybe $5, if that. If you want some janky religious game, then I guess this is for you. Maybe this game is made more for like kids and teenagers that are just getting into the faith, but I definitely don't think this is for people that have been with the faith for a while. I wouldn't call it blasphemous, but I would call it a holy piece of shit. I don't understand the amount of glaze this game is getting. It's not really that great. I'm not going to say it's the worst game ever, but it's not that great. So I'm giving this a dad not approved. The only part I really liked was parkouring as Jesus Christ. One last thing, I was able to load this game up when they had the achievements updated. So I got all the achievements, and according to true Steam achievements, I was the first person to 100% I am Jesus Christ. If you made it this far, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.